welcome to the fall season of Ironman 2019. So we're getting ready to launch into a 10-week series that we've entitled Influence and Connection. I don't know how much you ever consider your life being a part of something that's bigger and more grand than you'd ever imagine, but that's the invitation. We've all been invited in, and yet we're prone to think way too small about the influence that our lives could have. And yet our influence is completely tied to our connection or our relationships. So this 10 weeks, we're going to take a significant dive into John chapter 15 and how Jesus framed out this whole reality of influence rooted in connection. And we hope that you'll plan on being with us. Gentlemen, welcome. Give yourselves a round of applause. You made it. Monday, September 16th. Hey, I want to just honestly tell you guys we're glad that you're here. And this is some crazy idea that got going a number of years ago. I'll just tell you real quickly a little bit of history for some of you guys that are in fact, how many of you guys are your first time to little Ironman session? You guys be willing to raise your hand? Good. Glad you guys are here, man. This is really great. Good. Just so you know, there's a crazy group of guys that meet on Thursday morning as well. You're first, so Monday night, and then we'll have another group of guys filling this room Thursday morning. But this idea started a number of years ago from a guy who was in my life who put this haunting question in my soul years ago, and he said this, who are your men? And I went, what do you mean? He goes, well, like, who are you giving your life away to? You know, like, it isn't just about you. So this started me on a journey a number of years ago. I've worked with an organization called Young Life now for going on 43 years. And so I've just always had small groups of guys because some people invested in my life. I don't know where I'd be right now had some people not reached out to me, and I'm forever grateful. But I started meeting with a group of young men down at Bob Evans a number of years ago. And we met for 2.5 years. Some guys are in their early 20s, and after we kind of finished with those guys, we met and got another group of guys, 14 guys, and then next year had 18 guys, and the next year 14 guys, and then I was told that we had to open up the meeting, and I thought that was a bad idea because we were just humming right along. And they said, no, you need to open this up. So we made it a little hard. On Thursday mornings, we started at 6:15. There were 120 guys in this room that first Thursday. This was over 10 years ago. And after that first year, a bunch of guys said, hey, look, I want to come to this crazy thing, but I got no interest in getting up that early, so I'm not coming. Or work was prohibitive. And I said, well, what if we do it on a Monday night? And they go, well, I'll do that. I'll go out on a Monday night if we do it. So we did it. And it's really interesting. People go like, what's this Ironman name thing? Like, are we seriously going to do an Ironman? I go, no, we're not going to do anything like that. But what I do want to say, the name does mean something. And here's basically where it comes from. I love to run and have run for years, but you guys know that the Ironman race is a 3-tiered endurance race, 140.6 miles in a day, where you swim and you bike and then you run a marathon. And not a lot of people do that. I understand that. But when you think of your life, the race of a marathon is one day. Your life could be 60, 70, 80, 90 years. And here's what I know. I think a lot more people live this life without actually thinking about their lives. And here would be an illustration of this. If we went down to a restaurant right now and we said, hey, we'll give everybody $100 in this restaurant. If you could go home and in the next half hour come back and have some kind of piece of paper that would show that you've actually thought about your retirement plan or how you're going to take care of yourself if you quit working, I think a fair number of people could probably do something like that. If we said, hey, we'll give you $500 if you can come back with just a little piece of paper, even if it's handwritten, on the kind of mark you want to leave with your life and the kind of person or man you want to be when you die and how you want to impact the people who are dearest to you. I'll give you $500 if you have that on paper. Most people will look at you like, you're crazy. Now here's the point. It's your life. I would not have that had somebody not said that very statement to me. So here's what I know. We live our lives. Very few of us actually consider the lives that we're living. We just live them. And lives change. I know men in this room who've had people that things have changed drastically in their families over the last year. In a myriad of ways. In my family, some things have drastically changed that I would have never seen on the radar screen a year ago, this time last year. But it happens, doesn't it? So here's what I want you to know. This is just a regular group of dudes. If you're new here, I want you to know, let me just tell you what this isn't, okay? Before I tell you what it is. and then I'm going to ask you to do something real easy. This is not a gathering for a unique few. If you go back and tell some people tomorrow where you were tonight, they're going to go, you were in a room with how many men? Like, that's weird. That's crazy. Like, what were you doing? One of the things I know, this is not just for a unique few. It's not religious. So if you were looking for a really religious gathering, this is probably not the place you want to be. It's going to be real, I can tell you that. And sometimes it might even be a little raw. But it's going to be honest. This is not a Bible study. So if you're looking for a Bible study per se, this is not what that is. But we are going to study the Bible, if that makes sense to you. We're going to use the Scriptures, but it isn't just that's the only thing. We want to go after truth in every dimension. This is not for people who have it all figured out, because then I couldn't come. Because I don't have it all figured out. But what it is a time where men at various ages, and there's all kinds of ages in this room, who want to come and lean into their lives and want to grow and be challenged and be the best version of you that you can be, and hopefully maybe make this world a little bit better because you lived in it. That's kind of what we're trying to do. So here's what I know. If you're at all like me, every heart in this room could probably use a little bit of love and help and healing. Do you guys know what I mean by that? So one of the things we're committed to here is literally called restoring our hearts. I don't know about you, and over the course of this weeks together, we'll talk about this, but we all didn't get this way, the way we are right now, by accident. You weren't shaped in a vacuum. Like things actually happened in our life, and we've had some experiences. Some have been magnificent, some have been really difficult, but they leave messages and they impact us. And so we want to have a chance to restore those hearts. We want to continue to create an environment to catalyze some friendships. You know, some of you guys don't have a ton of friends. Some of you have a bunch of them. But one of the things I know is that men, as they get older, they tend to have fewer friendships, not more. And so we want to catalyze some of that. And then we want to help all of us begin to think about how we can engage in some things outside of this room that might make things a little bit better. So wherever you are in your journey spiritually, I just want to say welcome. I'm really glad you're here. You don't have to be at any certain place. There's all kinds of stuff going on in this room. There's good going on. There's messy going on. There is joy going on. There's healing going on. There's struggle going on. There's people who just come through struggle. It's all here. And so what we're going to do over these next 10 weeks is this. I personally believe that every one of us has been invited to be a part of a greater movement that's going on in this world in ways that we don't even know. And I think it's way too easy to fall into, if you will, too small thinking regarding what your life and my life can actually participate in. And I would even say this, the influence that your life could actually have. The impact that your journey could actually have in the world. So what we want to begin to do is begin to think about how could this occur? If that's true, what's really going on in the world, whether I see it or not, and how can I begin to be a part of some things that are actually taking place? So I want to show you a few pictures and just imagine kind of what's going on there. Like, just tell me, we're very participatory here. Like, what do you guys see up there, just face value? You see dad, what? Dad and daughter, and this is at a wedding. That's a pretty unique thing going on right now. Any of you guys ever had that privilege?
He just got the bill.
Let me just tell you, he just got the bill. I just want, that's right. I would say, if you haven't ever had the privilege, and if you will one day, there's no way to prepare for that, I can tell you. It's just absolutely impossible. So I just said, okay, keep going. Can we get to the next one, Dave? Will it work? Yes, it will. What do we see here? What's going on right here? We got a nice dinner, don't we? We got family and friends and people all around. Obviously, it's some type of a holiday or a celebration. They're marking a moment together, right? That's pretty significant. How about another one? Dave, what do you see here? This is the world some of you live in every day, right? I just left that, quite frankly. But what does that mean to you when you see that? What is that? Okay, there's work, but what else comes out of that? Connection. Technology, which leads to information, which leads to work, which leads to more connection, which leads to influence. It leads to a lot of things going on, right? Let's take a couple more. We got a few more. What do you see here? What's going on here? What do you see here? See some fun? Definitely see some fun. Compassion. Inclusion. Yeah. You know, the great thing about those little guys right there, they aren't old enough yet to really struggle with some of the same things to the degree that we do every single day. Isn't that great? They're just with their buddies. And when you see here, it's just a great little picture, isn't it? They're just wanting to be a part. And then this last one right here, Dave, you can put this one up. Obviously, this is a pretty obvious thing plug, but that is an ultimate vision of something called connection. Now, here's what I want you guys to see. Every one of those pictures was a picture of connection in some dynamic or form. Would you agree with that? Yeah. Now, there are outcomes of those connections. You see that father and that daughter? Man, that's years of faithfulness right there, right? And he's giving her away to this guy, and he's just praying. I guarantee you. And who knows what can, maybe grandkids will come from this. We don't know. And then you see these families around the table and the memories and the future things that could happen there. The power of that connection, the influence that those generations will have and those little fellas. I'm just saying that these things go on. So here's what I mean by this. That influence actually demands connection or relationships. And I would say relationships are vital to having some type of impact. They go both ways. So we've kind of entitled this little 10 weeks together, Influence and Connection. We're going to see this in the scriptures in just a little bit, but that influence actually takes relationships to actually begin to flourish, and relationships are a pipeline to influence. You're not going to influence something where you don't have a relationship. So look at this picture. And what I'd like you to do is get with 2 or 3 other men and ask this question. What do you imagine the wake or the influence of your life being? Or maybe another way to say it would be, what is the mark or the ripple effect that you want to have go out from your life? At the end of your days, how would you like that question to be answered? Take some time and bat around some ideas together. Enjoy this time. I would love for just a couple of you maybe just to share. Let's just write some things up, you know, in terms of when you think of your life. And this is no right or wrong answer. I think it would be really enjoyable to hear this from a variety of people. And then we'll take a look at something here. I think it'll be really enjoyable. But what were some things you guys came up with when you think about, okay, what would be that wake of impact, that wake of influence or fruitfulness that I would like to have in my life when my run's up? This would kind of be some things that I would hope that would have marked my journey. I mean, anybody, this would be the time to participate. That would be great, Charles. Thank you.
Proverbs 3, 5, and 6 are trust in the Lord.
So you'd like to have a life, Steve, of trusting the trusted God. Would that be good? Be fair? Right. Good. Thanks, Charles. Yeah.
Service.
Service. Service in what way? Say a little bit about that. Service. I know.
Making myself available to do what God has gifted me to do, to help people, to encourage people.
All right.
You know, serving the kingdom.
So it's not always maybe just even going and doing something as much as even how you treat people.
Yeah.
Just that when they get in your draft, that would have been a good encounter. Maybe when that's over, they go like, you know, I enjoyed that. That was a good thing. I'm better for that conversation, that encounter. Great. Yeah, Gary?
I would like people to say, well, one thing about Gary, we count.
One thing about Gary, we could count on him. Gosh, count on Gary. Good. Kind of your word is your bond. Like, you know, you say it, we can depend on it. You're going to be the first to tell us, hey, I told you this, I can't, but if I can, I can't, but you're dependable. Good. Yeah, just great. And we'll throw it around. It's great.
How about leading?
Leading?
Yeah.
Yeah, say a little bit of that. Why'd you say that?
Am I leading my kids the godly way? Am I being a good example for them?
Leading. You know, this is interesting. We'll talk about more of this. Some of you may have heard of these guys called the Jesuits. You ever heard of those guys? Well, if you haven't, just know this, that probably most of the greatest educational institutions in the U.S. were started by the Jesuits. They were a little order than the Catholics. They did some really unique stuff. And one of the things, I'm reading a book right now called Heroic Leadership about the Jesuits. If you're interested in a great read, this guy was a Jesuit and then he went into business. But he said all the stuff that's really benefited him in business, he learned from the Jesuits. And one of the things was about leading. And interesting, he said this, they really believed that every person was a leader because of this. Every person has influence. It's not if, it's just what kind of influence you're going to have. Because see, we often think you have to influence massive amounts of people to be a leader. And so we look for the big name, the big face, the big impact. Well, how about a dad that just shows up every day? How about a friend? How about a coworker? Everybody is making, you have a sphere of influence. The question is, do you think about it? Are you aware of it? How do you try to impact it even more? This is huge. Good. Keep going. Yeah, brother.
The thing that Jesus said was to follow him and then to go. So bringing others to God, to save that next one, to keep that guy off the street, to pull that next one together.
Follow. Great. So first of all, if I hear you saying you got to be that person if I'm going to get another person. And so you're following, you're being that. That's right. Well, I got you. So are we all. Welcome to us, brother. And then because you've been that, there's a sense in which your heart just expands. And you care about other people that are struggling. Anybody meet anybody today, walk by anybody today you think was struggling at all? I mean, at all? Yeah. Yeah, Bob?
I think maybe one of the influences that I want to leave for the fruits is that wake, I was a ship out of control creating a wake that wiped out a bunch of people. And as a result, I was able to circle back after I gave my life and my will over to the care of God and Jesus. I was able to circle back around and pick them up.
Wow.
Then get on the tow rope again without being wiped out. And that fact that if somebody can make the decisions and the mistakes that I made and then come around and say, well, that wasn't really, of course that wasn't the right decision to make, be an example of what can happen when you do run things through what I call the God filter, through your decision tree, and then you have a much better chance of not making those crazy decisions again.
God, I put renewal in case you can't read my writing. That's powerful. Did you hear what Bob said? He said, first go around, the wake was a little crazy. But a lot of people I know every day, they think it's too late. Screwed up, done. And I think what he's saying, because of who we met, it's never too late, as we're going to find out in just a minute, that he gives you another chance to make a different wake, right?
If I may add, too, that those who heard my story, I don't want to put them on the spot, but a couple of years ago I shared some intense moments in my life, and my son Riley is the one who brought me back. And
He's sitting right here. Isn't that pretty cool? Riley, way to go, man. You want to say anything or not? You don't have to, but if you'd like to, you can.
Just touch on that specifically? Or?
Whatever you'd like, for even response to what your dad said. I don't know.
Oh, okay. Well, I guess just more on the fruits and the impact you would want to leave. Just kind of, mine was also going to be service, just because at Grace, I've gotten pretty involved with the disabilities ministry for the past few years, and that's just something that I really want to pass on to other people. And just because I would have never been in that position had the people in my life steer me in that direction and just kind of push me over the edge to say, hey, this is something you should try out. You may not be fully prepared for it, but what's on the other side is greater, and it can really impact you as well as the other people you're serving. So,
how old are you, Riley?
I'm 18.
18. That's really good. So let me ask you this. How impacting is it for an 18-year-old young man to say one of the things he wants his life to be marked by is serving other people? Like if that can stay, that's pretty powerful, right? Now, Riley, I want to say this, not that because you're here, because you weren't here when your dad shared this about to the group. And again, a lot of these guys weren't here, I know a little bit more because your dad and I have walked together a little more deeply, but how much you have impacted him. Like he would say, I think this is fair that God used you, not when you were 18, but you were like 15, 16, to kind of turn your old man around so that wake could be different. So I'm just saying, this influence has nothing to do with age. Really? Like he forgave his dad. They talk like that's big boy stuff. That's like man stuff. I know guys 50 that can't do what he did. Like this is big. And so I'm just saying, you start thinking about these things now, and then your willingness to dare to walk, to serve some people with disabilities. Some of you know Kevin. I hope Kevin's going to come with someone. Kevin Taylor's been bound to a wheelchair his whole life. Kevin bobbed in here 2 years ago at Dan's table and said this, and you have to really focus to hear Kevin speak, but his mind is better than anybody's probably in this room. It just doesn't connect with his mouth and his body very well. But he basically asked this question once we translate it. He goes, ask the men what they thought of me when they first saw me. Do you remember that? You could have almost heard a mouse fart in the room. It was like, well, like doing dead quiet, you know what I mean? And then Kevin shared a few thoughts, and then he asked, ask them what they think of me now. And there were a couple guys that said, I wished I was more like you. Because it takes courage. Every room you go in, people think you're something you're not. They don't know that you're more than what you appear to be. They don't give him a chance. They assume because he's had trouble talking that there's nothing in there to actually communicate, and there's amazing things in that man to communicate. And the courage it takes to keep fighting to say a word. And it can take him minutes to say 10 words. And how frustrating it would be. But he doesn't shut down. I'm just saying, like, these are so powerful. So thank you, Bob, really, and Riley, for your vulnerability. That's huge. Welcome to Ironman. How about a couple more? This is terrific. Yeah, Alex, and then we'll go up front. Gary? Wisdom. Wisdom. You want your life to be marked by wisdom. This is a great word. I can't help but describe this a little bit. I want to define this. You guys remember what wisdom actually means? Because if you were to take wisdom, read the book of Proverbs, it's like taking some knowledge and prudence and understanding, and you shake it all up, and out comes wisdom. But here's what wisdom meant to a Hebrew mind. It meant conforming to the way things were actually created to be. You're just conforming to reality. And when you do, life works better. Another way they'd say it, somebody who's wise is just skilled at living. Somebody who's good at business. You could be skilled at business. You could be a skilled carpenter. Somebody that just did what they did with excellence and understanding in a way that just moved things to a different level. Wise, skilled at living. It's a pretty powerful word. How about Gary, you were going to share something.
I hope and pray that people would say that he really cared.
He cared. Can you say a little more about that? Because that's beautiful. Like, you cared. What do you mean by cared? Real loud.
That I listened.
You listened.
I participated. I was there. And also on the other end, that I called on them for help when it was needed as well.
Wow. So it's not you just doing, but being vulnerable enough to let them come into your cage a little bit when you need it as well. That's powerful. Good. A couple more. This is good. Bobby?
My wife and I have recently established plans to give hope to those who are struggling.
Say that again. I couldn't hear it.
We're working to give hope to those who are struggling.
Hope to those who are struggling. Great. Let's put hope up here. And you guys have been through some struggle yourself, so I mean that in a good way. It's seen that God uses our pain to often utilize what mark we're going to leave. How about one more? This is really good. Dave and then Chad. We'll get a couple more.
Reflection of Christ's love.
Reflection of Christ's love. Is that anything specific in that, Dave? I mean.
Well, we're designed to be image bearers of God's image bearers. And in every relationship, every encounter, I would just love to be known to be a reflection of Christ's love.
That's good. Powerful. Not just the best that you can pull off. Now, we're going to answer, I'm just telling you, we're going to ask the question in a minute, how does this happen? This is a great list. The question is, how? We'll keep on it. Chad?
I said generosity.
Generosity.
Actually, Justin probably said it a little better. Said just being a good steward of the things God has given him.
So to be generous and good stewardship. The things that come into your hands that you want to be willing to let them go out of your hands to other people, not just kind of hold on to it with there's just not enough to go around mentality. That be fair to say? Yeah. Now again, I'm going to push you guys just for a minute. I want to encourage you, if you don't learn anything else tonight, you could go home right now and start a document, okay? It can only be a paragraph, 2 paragraphs if you want. Because here's what I know. If you don't give this some time to consideration, you won't do it. And here's how I know. You're not any different than me. And when I don't focus it, I just, intention is not reality, but it's a step. So the first, you get it down. I'd even try to write out what does a picture of that look like in your head. Little steps. We'll talk more about this as we go along, that you can begin to practice this in your life. So 10, 12, 15 years down the road, These things are actually happening in your life if they're not already. But this is important that you all can even say these things. This is massive. This is really, really important. Because this is what I'm trying to say. What if our life wasn't just about living out the days that were allotted to us, right? But actually making a difference with the days that we had. Really making a difference. Because I know this is true. We are made for so much more, and I think we've learned to settle for less. We've just learned to settle. I don't think we're meant to settle. I think we're meant to flourish. So they did a little research. There's some 80-year-olds that they did a survey on a number of years ago about some things that they would do if they had it to do over again. Can you imagine that? So 80 years old saying, okay, what are some things that you wish you would do differently if you could do it over again? Here's the top three things they said. Number one, they would take more time to think. They would take actually more time to actually consider their lives. That's interesting, isn't it? Here's the second one, that they would have taken more risks. More risks. I don't think these are risks like jumping off of mountains, but just risks. Emotional risks, relational risks. Not always just playing it so safe that I don't want to get hurt. And here's the third one, that they would invest in something that was going to outlive them. That they would invest in a cause and a reality that was going to outlive them. Isn't that wonderful? So we get this chance to do this right now. So when you guys think of the most influential person to ever live, who comes to mind? You guys don't need to be, I think it's Jesus. Like, whoa, wait, who? I mean, like, even if you're not religious, you could probably get this one right. Yeah. I mean, Jesus. Yeah, Jesus. That's good. I'm going to write this down just so you guys know. Okay, Jesus, right. Now, there are a number of reasons why I think this is true, even for an unchurched, like, I don't know, I've heard Jesus, I use his name when I'm frustrated sometimes. I mean, whatever. But here's things you got to know about Jesus, whether like, we actually date time by Jesus. There's more art done in his honor and in his name than any other name. There's more music written about him than any other music that's ever been written. There have been more people helped, more poor people fed, more things to encourage life in his name than any other name. I would even say this, more people have died for following him than any other cause. Now, this is profound because Jesus actually had some things to say about all this. He had a lot to say about connection and influence. In fact, the scriptures tell us in Colossians 1, verses 12 to 13, this is a powerful passage. He says this, "For he has rescued us, literally from the domain of darkness, and he has brought us into the kingdom of the Son he loves, in whom we have redemption," this forgiveness of sins. Like, Jesus came to bring a whole nother realm of living. In essence, how many of you guys think life the way it is the way it ought to be? Right? We all sense that, right? But Jesus actually came so we could experience life how it ought to be as much as possible till the day comes again when it's actually going to be the way it should be, finally. He came to set in motion, if you will, a renewal plan, Bob, basically using your words, and means, anybody know what means? Yeah. Again. It can't happen for the first time. It's going to happen again. He's bringing back what should have been. This is why Colossians 1:19, Paul says this, "For God was pleased to have all his fullness dwell in him, this one Jesus Christ, and through him to reconcile all things to himself." All things. Having brought peace through his blood shed on a cross. So in essence, what we're beginning to see is that Jesus came to start this movement of bringing things back to the way they were actually created to be in the first place. Are you with me? We don't have to think this up. The question was, how is he going to do it? And what mark with the people that he wanted to do it through actually leave. So if you have your scriptures or your phone, or you can look next to somebody, I want you to turn to John 15, because we're going to spend 10 weeks and 17 verses. All right? And you go, wow, you're pretty serious about this. No, I think it's so powerful because in this, Jesus really begins wherever you are. If you want your life to have influence, and I do you? Then I would say that that influence that you want your life to have has everything to do with who or what you're ultimately connected to. Because we can ultimately connect to the wrong thing and end up having crazy influence. Or we can connect to a right thing and have amazing influence. So let me give you a little background, and then I want to read this scripture because this is really powerful. In John chapter 15, do you guys know what comes after John 15? John 16. See, this is a very smart group. So basically, half of John's gospel was written in the last week of Jesus' life, from John 13 to when Jesus was obviously crucified. John 15, Jesus starts out with, I am the true vine. Interestingly, we don't have time to go back there right now, but if you look back at Psalm 80, Israel at one point was seen as known as being the true vine of Israel, meaning they were going to be the ones through whom God was going to, work to do amazing things in the world. They got caught up in a few ditches, some idolatry and some chaos for a period of time. So Jesus comes and he says, no, I'm the true vine. Like I'm the one that's going to complete what should have been done. We're going to get her done. And I'm literally going to be the one who's going to bring the kind of restoration and healing that is meant to be in the world. Now, you also know this. These are last words. This is not Jesus' first message, his first sermon that he's giving. These are his last words. And it's interesting, he speaks in a picture, in a metaphor, to communicate something really, really important. So if you're getting ready to die and you're going to leave, how important would your last words be? Like that document of what you want your life to be about, they'd be pretty important, wouldn't it? So, because this is so important, and then we'll get after this tonight a little bit. Jesus says, I am the true vine, and my Father is the gardener. He cuts off every branch in me that bears no fruit, while every branch that does bear fruit, He prunes so that it will even be more fruitful. Now you are already clean because of the word that I've spoken to you. Remain in me, or some versions might say abide in me, right? And I will remain in you. No branch can produce fruit unless it remains in the vine. Neither can you bear fruit unless you remain in me. Now I am the vine, and you are the branches. If you remain in me, and I remain in you, you will bear much fruit. For apart from me, you can do nothing. But if you do not remain in me, you are like a branch that is thrown away and withered. Such branches are picked up and they're thrown into the fire and burned. But if you remain in me, and my words remain in you, you can ask whatever you wish, and my Father will give it to you. This is to my Father's glory, that you bear much fruit, showing yourselves to be my disciples. Then Jesus says, get this, as the Father has loved me, so have I loved you. Now just remain in my love. Now if you keep my commands, you will remain in my love, just as I kept my Father's commands and remained in His love. Now, I've told you this so that my joy may be in you, and that your joy might be made complete. And my command is this, that you love each other as I have loved you. Greater love has no man than this, that he lay down his life for his friends. Greater love has no man than this, and he lay down his life for his friends. And you are my friends if you do what I command. Now, I no longer call you servants, because a servant does not know his master's business. But instead, I've called you friends. For everything that I learned from my Father, I've made known to you. You did not choose me. I chose you. And I appointed you to go and bear fruit. Fruit that would last or would remain. Then the Father will give you whatever you ask in my name. Now this is my command, that you love one another. That's pretty powerful, isn't it? Last words. And it goes on a little bit, but Jesus, this is deep, isn't it? So here it is. Jesus says, what are the two words that you heard a lot in that passage? We highlighted them with colors. Fruit and remain. Fruit and, again, give it to me. Remain. Let's change the words. Fruit could also be, another word we could use is contemporary language, influence, impact. Remain could be connect. We're going to define these for you a little bit more, but Jesus is basically saying this. 8 times the word fruit is used. We're going to talk about fruit for 2 weeks in this session. What is it? Where does it come from? And everything else. A lot of times you keep people saying, fruit, 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 fruit. Produce fruit. You got to produce fruit. Jesus was all about fruit. He wants us to have impact. There's a full expectation that our lives would be impacting. He wants fruit, much fruit, more fruit, wants fruit. But the key to fruit is this other word that's used 11 times, and it's this word, abide. And this is very, very important, and we're going to take a look at a little bit of the time that we have. This word actually means something that's pretty profound. So here's what Jesus does. He says, look, I'm leaving. I brought a whole movement to the world where people can actually experience life as it ought to be. And you guys got a taste of it when I healed the demoniac and the blind man, and we cared for the poor, and we challenged injustices at the highest level of our society and culture. And I'm giving the baton to you, but here's how you have to think about this if you're going to carry on the influence. And then he throws this picture up there. Dave, let's do this. Can you throw that picture up? We get this picture of that. This is crazy, isn't it? Jesus goes, look, we're going to change the world, and here's what I want you to remember. That picture. That picture says how it's going to get done. Right there. You know, it's not a guy on like a stallion with a, sword. No, it's right there. Would you guys typically think that's what's in that? You think, last words, he gives an image. It's like, why didn't he talk about, something like guys are beating each other up or just doing something crazy or something? Like, man, this is right there. If you understand that, then you have the capacity to live a different kind of life. But if you don't understand that, you'll try to produce those little grape kind of things, and you won't be very good at it. Because we're going to talk about a lot of that. This is pretty powerful stuff, right? It takes a lot of pressure off, too. Picture's worth 1,000 words, and here's why this is so profound. Why do you think Jesus gave him that picture? What do you think?
They knew what that was about. They enjoyed the fruits of that.
They saw this all the time, didn't they, Mel? They're walking around Israel. You actually see these things growing around. You remember just Jesus is left, all of a sudden, it's like, oh my gosh, vine and branch. There you go. I remember what he said. That's exactly right. It's repeatable. We think images, don't we? Jesus is saying something. We'll see this in the next couple of weeks, but he says, I am the what? You are the what? That means we are not what? The vine. That's exactly right. He's stating reality. He's saying, look, I am something and you are something. And when you just be you and you conform to me being me, then I can be me in you. Do you think that grapes, they get produced apart from the vine? Have you guys ever tried to just be a nicer guy? It's like, I got to be nicer. Like, why? How long does it last? I got to be more loving. Man, I got to quit looking at women the way I'm looking at them. I just got to stop. I got to stop. I got to try harder. I just got to quit cussing so much, man. I just got to. And you're white knuckling this thing. Try hard. I get that. Jesus said, there's something secret about this, right? Fruit is used 8 times. We're going to define that later. But abide, let me tell you what abide means. This is such a great word. If you're into languages and you want Greek, I'll give it to you over here. But I'm not going to keep bringing this board out, but it's meno. It's often used, you can use other words. That's why you might see it in your Bible, where you might say remain or dwell in, to tarry. It literally means to stay put. To stay put. Stay put. Don't move around. Stay where you are. You got. I think there you go. To be at home in Him. So I want you to just picture this. Just imagine the greatest place in your home where you like to be. Like for me, if you said, okay, where is it good? I go, okay, it's a morning. I'm in my chair by this little table and lamp in my living room. I got a pillow there that I put on my lap, and I got all my reading books like in this basket. I got a place for my coffee cup. I got my pellet stove right behind it, man, that blows heat in the winter. And I just pick, man, it's just the greatest place to sit, like right there. It's kind of like Jesus is saying, yeah, that spot is me. Stay right there. Stay right there. Does this make sense to you? Yes. Here's what he said. Abide is also, it's like this. Imagine your safest place and just stay there, because in that place is where you find comfort and strength and nourishment to care, for wisdom, to trust, to serve, to literally follow and go out to other people. This is a profound place, and this word is in the present perfect tense. So abide literally means this: do it now. 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 What do you think Jesus is trying to say to us? Do it now. Which means what? Never stop doing it. We're going to get into this, but he says, when you think you can operate apart from this reality, Jesus is just stating reality. Like, I have full intention, I think Jesus is saying, of impacting this world. Of doing in the world what I did, but now I'm going to do it through my people. But there's a way it's going to get done, and it's through relationship, through a power more than what you have to do this. And it's going to come through me. And you've got to stay where you are. So there is never a time, right, when a branch's health or its influence isn't completely tied to the connection to the vine. Is that true or not? There is never a moment where the branch's health and necessity for fruitfulness isn't completely tethered to the reality of the vine. So that means then that everything that the vine has, the branch has access to if it just stays here. Right? So what if we could say this? Lord, you and I both know, like, those kind of people really bug me. Just illustration. And I've done everything I can on my own to try to love them better. And it's almost like Jesus says, why don't you just quit trying so dang hard and just focus on the reality of my relationship with you and your relationship with me and who I am and how much you need me, and then trust me that I might just increase your fruitfulness or capacity to love in ways that you can't on your own. Does that make sense to you guys? See, we're going to talk about pruning. Those things don't get that good, so we're going to spend a whole week or two on pruning. Some of you may want to miss that week. No, I'm not teasing. We really will. We're going to talk about pruning. We're going to talk about fruit. We're going to talk about this command. Like, why the command? He says, well, here's how you abide in me. How do I do it? You love each other. Well, okay, well, you obey my commands. Well, what's the command? Love each other. Like, what? How's that work? You mean like being productive, I need to kind of obey, but we're going to talk about that too, because that has a bad connotation for some of us. But so, what do you want me to obey? I want you to love each other. So you mean how I love people helps me abide? Yeah. How does that work? Well, we're going to talk about that. Now I want to go back again. How many want your life to have influence? Me? Fruitfulness? We can do it 2 different ways. I can try it my way, or we can do it another way. I think what Jesus is trying to say to us, you guys, he's just giving us reality. And he's basically saying, look, I'm not who you are. And you're not who I am. So once we get that straight, this thing can really work. Like, how much does a branch need the vine? Sounds like a stupid question, doesn't it? How much? 100%. So let me ask you, how much do you think need the Lord? Well, then why do we run away from Him so often? Why is He often the third person we engage in a conversation with? I do it too, right? I think Jesus said, you can knock yourself out and try to produce whatever you want on your own. There's a lot easier way. And so what if we learn to just stay in this place better, and then I think things begin to change in ways that we never would imagine. So now that we've spent some time talking about John 15 and some of the imagery that Jesus gave to consider what the future could be like, get with a couple other guys and begin to stir up some thoughts around this question, why did Jesus give this picture of a vine and a branch to talk about influence rooted in connection? All right, guys, let's pull together, gents. Let's do this. This is my rendition of Goody Vine and Branches. Well, very poor, but anyway, you'll get the point. Hey, well, just real quickly, just 2 or 3 of you or 4 of you, why do you really feel, just again, like don't overthink it, but why this picture? Why do you think Jesus gave such a compelling picture? There's so much in it. But, I mean, anything. He could have given a million pictures to this thing being influence or fruitfulness or productivity, whatever you want to say going on, with every expectation that it is to go on, that it will go on, but the how of it is magical. And he gives a picture of this that's huge. Any ideas? What did you guys come up with? Anybody come up with anything? Yeah, Bobby?
I like the idea that he talked about branches that could be cut off.
Yeah.
But there's also the possibility of branches being added back in.
Okay, so there's a grafting. Yeah, all right. So there's this vision of, these things could kind of lose their way. And we'll talk more about that one week. That I'm not saying it's a certainty of judgment. There's a few different perspectives on that we'll get at. But I do think that this is important. How about a couple other thoughts on why Jesus? What do you think He's really wanting them to understand? Yeah, Dan?
When I looked at that, I saw very plush grapes and
yes.
If I even saw pictures how I do it, there'd be dead branches. grapes.
Yeah.
He'd say, no, do it over here and it looks good.
Yeah, that's good. Mike?
The first thing that came to my mind is the fruit. If I'm a branch, the fruit doesn't come from anything I do.
Yeah.
Like I'm just sort of the carrier, right?
Yeah.
But all the life comes
Yep.
out of the roots and the trunk.
Yeah. This is why this is just so magical in many ways. I think one of the things Jesus is trying to say to us is, look, everything that I'm asking you to do, everything you want to see done, literally I have the resource to do it in me. It's all available to you. So that it literally, you can almost, everything that's in the vine, it goes out to the branch so that the branch, we'll talk about this again in weeks to come, but it literally just becomes a display table for the vine to be what it is in us. So this is what's so powerful. We put so much effort in trying to produce the grapes and the fruit. We get exhausted. We compare. We feel guilty, which stagnates us. If this is the greatest reality of how impact's going to happen in the world, this is the thing that's going to get challenged more than anything. And when Jesus says, I want the impact like you do. But the way it's going to happen is by the product of something else occurring and being in place, which is a tethered relationship to me that you don't let anything take this out. Next week, we're going to talk about a little concept called sucker shoots. You have to watch how you say it. But it's these are real things that literally take and become sort of a distraction from getting what's in the vine to the branch so it can be all that it's meant to be. I can't tell you the people that I've seen quit, in essence get cut off from following the Lord because they felt they weren't good at it and couldn't get it right enough. And felt, I am tired of feeling guilty again and again and again and again. People are talking to me a lot more about my behavior than they are my connection to the one who loves me, who I need. And it's interesting. Fruit has a way of taking care of itself when you get the first things first. I think this is why Jesus is saying, I am. This is his last I am statement in the Gospel of John. There's 7 of them. This is the best. I am. Eternally, the ultimate reality that brings hope and fruitfulness to this world. I am the vine. And you are, not we ams, you are a branch. Just be a branch. And a good branch knows, I've got to have the vine. This is why a man in my life said, he said, you know what, Goody? You know the most important person that you need to win to Christ every day is? Myself. So there's not just trying to go out and be a certain person for Him. It's like, Lord, I just need you. You're in me. I just want to be a branch today. Exposed. Do what you want. I need you. I'm going into this meeting. Lord, would you just live through me in this meeting? Lord, in this class that I'm in, man, I get so distracted. I hate this class, but I got to take it. Okay, well, Lord, would you just help me lean into this? Hey, Lord, there's this relationship that's just bugging the living daylights out of me. I need to talk to this person. I don't know what to say. What should I do? You know, I think the vine actually cares about this stuff. Does this make sense to you guys? And every place these guys went, they were having to see it. So let me just, see, here's what we need to know. The vine can actually make it without the branch. The branch isn't going to make it without the vine. God's kingdom isn't going to get shut down because I try to go against the grain in how these things work. So here's what I just want to offer, maybe a couple little nuggets that will encourage you as we think about how to tend to this. If you're going to put any effort, and we'll talk about fruit, we'll get very concrete about all this stuff. If you're saying, well, you saying, Pat, that we really, just relax. All I'm saying is the power and energy to do anything lasting doesn't come from me. At least that's my experience. I've tried it. Some of you in this room are nodding your head because you know what that's like. But when I've really realized, in this interview, says, remain in my love. We're going to talk about that the whole week. Remaining in the love of Christ. Do you know what that would do to productivity if many of us in this room actually believed and could remain in something that you subtly think you have to earn that you can't get? That's a given? Jesus is saying, this is reality. This is how this works. You can go against it or you can conform to it. That's called wisdom. This is called skilled in living. Doing it this way. So here's a couple things. I want to give you this that really helped my life. Just stay connected. Helping me remember first things first. You guys probably have a bunch of your own. I just want to get really practical before we close up week 1. Does this make sense? Good. Here's the first thing. Quietness. I've got to, at some point, have quietness in my life. I try to get some every day. But if I don't get it every day, every other day. But I try to build in to my schedule some quietness. And I mean, it can be like this. Driving without the radio on, intentionally. Like, I don't need to hear any other opinions. I just need some quiet. And here's what it does for me. It allows and reminds me who's who and what's what. We're going to work on a verse together. I wrote this. It's really cool. It's John 15. Some of you knew we our last word every week, we read a little passage of Scripture, and eventually, if you do this 10 times, it actually gets in your head. But this is going to be like, this is a great little passage of Scripture, John 15, 1 to 5. You can literally be driving down the road, and this will get in your head. I'm the true vine, my Father is a gardener. He cuts off every branch of me that bears no fruit, while every branch that does bear fruit, He prunes so they'll be more productive. But you're already clean because the word I've spoken to you. Remain in me. I'll remain in you. God, yeah, remain in me. What does it mean to remain? And you just, it's so awesome. You can have this. So quietness in my life is huge at some degree on a regular basis. Secondly, little habits. Little habits. Some of you weren't here, but last semester we did a thing on little habits, meaning doing a lot of little things over a long period of time creates big things. Little money saved over a long period of time equals a lot of money. Little deposits into relationships over a long period of time equals a really significant relationship. Some little habits of reading, of prayer, good book. I got a place in my house where I get time. For most days, I'm right there. Days where I have really, really early meetings, I have to grab it at another point in time. But I kind of have some rhythms in my life over time. I'm not noble, you guys. Somebody helped me know how to protect the connection years ago. I've just been working on this a while. I'm not any different than you. I get phone calls. I get text messages. I got people that want to meet. I'm no different than anybody in this room. So this is what I'm saying. Here's another music. Sometimes I listen to just good music. And I want to say this. It's a whole other topic. I'm not just saying like, quote, Christian music. Like, good music doesn't have to just be Christian music. Okay, just good music. Could just be instrumental music, just music, okay? It could be music about the Lord that sings about. There could be, I don't know. For me, it's really helpful. I need to get outside.
Amen.
Like, I just need to get outside. And so, for me, a regular rhythm of taking care of my body helps me stay connected. I love to run. Some of you guys know that. I'm to the point now when I run, I don't really think about the run. I actually think about a million other things while I'm running. It's a great time for me to just ponder the Lord, pray for people. Like today I went for a run. I was praying for one of my grandsons. I was going through it a little bit, and another relationship. And it's just a different place for me to remind myself of what's going on. Here's another one. I just keep trying to take little steps of faith in some area of my life. Or serve in some place that kind of pushes my comfort zone a little bit, that makes me go back to the vine and go like, I really do need you. Like, this scares the crap out of me. Hey, you guys, like, I was a little uptight about tonight today. Like, none of you were thinking about tonight like I was. I'm serious, like, I'm just saying, like, this pushes me to the vine. I could like, I got to do it. No. I'm praying. I'm thinking about this today. I did a lot of work, but that's not the point. The point is, it pushes me. Something in your life that pushes you, right? And here's the final thing. I try to find some men, 1, 2, 3, 4, that I can give my life away to intentionally. Because when I try to give away what I've learned, it pushes me back to say, hey, Lord, what have you taught me? And so here's when this session's over, I pray to God that many of you will finally believe and maybe take a step that there are other people who, if you ask them to get together to talk about something significant, they would. Some of the younger men in this room, maybe there's a buddy that you'd reach out to and say, hey, I know this is crazy, but you want to just meet once a week and we could talk about this or that. Somebody, if the vine takes you to, you take leadership, a step of faith, you step it up, it pushes you on Him. Then when God moves, it's like, man, this really works. This is a real thing. Yeah, it is. It is. And it helps you take more faith. These are just some things that have kept me in the game over time. This isn't magic. And the other thing is, I've just gotten it wrong enough that I'm just tired of getting it wrong and fighting reality. I'm just so tired of doing it on my own. I don't have to. Amen to that? You guys encouraged? Amen. All right. Here's what we're going to do. Next week, God willing, we'll be back. And if you miss a week, it's okay. Come back the next week. We don't take attendance here. And if you wait, Paul, our good buddy's back there, Paul films on Monday night. And then he edits them. So about a week behind. But in the future, if you miss a week, you would be able to go online and find the week that you missed if you want to that way. When you leave, on the table, there'll be a card. It's right here. It looks like this. Get one, all right? We'll have plenty. Because we're going to read this. I encourage you just to stick it somewhere where you can read it during the week. This one's not laminated. The past ones, we've been able to take them in the shower and whatever else you do with it. I don't know, But we'll read this, and then and sometimes if you want, we'll have articles on the table. That's just totally, if you want one, feel free to get one. Some point in the session, if you have $10, it's not weekly. It's just during the session that'll help us just keep the goodies going and the coffee flowing and all that good stuff. Make sense? Amen. So let's do this. Let's stand. This will be our amen. And then if you're able to stick around and break the room down and help us, that'd be really helpful. So let's read this together, all right? This will be our amen. I am the true vine, and my Father is the gardener. He cuts off every branch in me that bears no fruit, while every branch that does bear fruit, He prunes so that it will be even more fruitful. You are already clean because of the words I've spoken to you. Remain in me, and I also will remain in you. No branch can bear fruit by itself. It must remain in the vine. Neither can you bear fruit unless you remain in me. I am the vine, you are the branches. If you remain in me, and I remain in you, you will bear much fruit. Apart from me, you can do nothing. Amen. So as we anticipate being together again for week 2 next week, please spend some time in John chapter 15, particularly in verses 1 to 5, because we're going to put that under the microscope next week and really get after it a little bit. Enjoy some time in this passage this week.